Welcome to an anime called Sabikui Bisco. Episode 1. A man arrives at the Gunma Imihama Prefecture's border outpost with his face covered with bandages and a heavily loaded covered wagon. He claims to be a monk, but his travel documents cannot be read by the scanner. He says that he is heading to Imihama on a pilgrimage and bury his wagon load of bodies, but the guard is suspicious of his identity. Criminals from Gunma Prefecture try to cross the border and cross the Rust Desert to get to Imihama, and the guard points to a poster offering an 800,000 reward for Akaboshi, man-eater, Bisco. Meanwhile in the city of Imihama, mild-mannered Dr. Milo Nekoyanagi uses his talents to help the poorer residents and cuts deals with the governor to acquire medical equipment for his research into the rusting disease. He secretly buys mushrooms on the black market to help further his research into a cure for the disease and save his infected older sister Po, who is also the captain of the Imihama Watch. Suddenly, the center of Imihama is attacked by man-eater Bisco and then he turns up at Milo's clinic. Episode 2. The monk at the border is revealed to be Rust-Eater Bisco. He fires an arrow into the ground which sprouts a giant mushroom, enabling him, his giant crab Akutagawa and his partner Jabi, who are hiding in the wagon, to be lifted over the border. Jabi is dying from rusting and Bisco plans to take him to Imihama, hoping that Dr. Milo can cure him. In Imihama, Bisco gives Milo a lurkishroom mushroom to help cure Jabi, but they are interrupted by Kurakawa's elite forces wearing bunny masks who open fire on the clinic. Bisco fires his arrows which create giant mushrooms, enabling them to flee. Kurakawa berates the mercenary Uchigama Tirol for allowing them to escape. Milo's sister Pau dons her uniform as of captain of the Imihama Watch and goes into action on her motorcycle to apprehend the wanted villain, Akaboshi Bisco. Bisco evades Kurakawa's forces, and captures one of the bunny masks who turns out to be Uchigama Tirol. However, before he can question her, he is confronted by Captain Pau. Episode 3. While Milo gives Jabi a blood transfusion to help heal him, Captain Pau attacks Bisco. Bisco tries to explain that mushrooms consume rust rather than spread it, which is why they are often seen at concentrations of rust, and that he is looking for the legendary Rust-Eater mushroom. Jabi explains to Milo that the Rust-Eater mushroom is rumored to be near a nest of monsters at a place called Weeping Child Ravine in Akita Prefecture. Bisco subdues Pau with a drugged arrow and reunites with Milo and Jabi. Milo injects Pau with the serum he made from Bisco's mushroom and then offers to join Bisco to seek the Rust-Eater mushroom while Jabi recovers. Bisco reluctantly agrees as traveling mushroom keepers operate in pairs like a tag team, and they head for the north gate. Bisco fires an arrow into the ground, causing a giant mushroom to sprout beneath them which catapults them over the wall. Episode 4. After escaping Imihama together, Milo and Bisco trudge out into the desert in search of the Rust-Eater mushroom, hoping to find it before Pau and Jabi succumb to the rusting disease. Eventually they come across Bisco's crab Akutagawa, which hid during the events in Imihama. Milo struggles to ride the giant crab, but he finally manages to control it. Later, the pair stop by an old abandoned gun emplacement at Nikosine Jagahara to rest, and inside they find Tirol struggling to breathe. Milo quickly kisses her, which is actually a means to save her from a balloon worm that Kurakawa secretly planted inside her, which expands without regular doses of an inhibitor. Tirol repays the favor by trying to sell them some of her goods, but they only buy a box of biscuits. Tirol dumps out a jug of expired coal-based fuel that activates the facility, which is built on top of a giant mantis shrimp. With Bisco's help, Milo is able to direct Akutagawa and stop the shrimp's rampage. However, it fires off one last cannon shell that blows up the mine entrance Bisco hoped to use to pass through the Ashio Bonecoal Mountains to Niigata. Bisco and Milo take an alternative route across the Calvero Shell Sand Sea wasteland and arrive at a ruined city. When Bisco grabs a boy carrying a watermelon, they come under fire from armed children. Episode 5. The armed children of Tetsujin Town demand that Bisco releases the boy, but Bisco reveals that he is the wanted criminal Akaboshi and surrenders himself. Later, a child explains to Milo that schools of giant blowfish rise up in winter and threaten the town, and that the adults have left to work for Kurakawa in Imihama to earn enough money to cure the rust which he said was infecting the children. However, Milo explains that the children suffer from shell skin and he provides a cure which the children can then easily manufacture themselves. When an unseasonal school of giant floating blowfish approaches the town, Bisco easily frees himself and successfully shoots down the blowfish with his arrows, which burst into huge mushrooms on impact. Meanwhile, in an abandoned city, Pau saves an old couple who are being menaced by a giant spider. However, Pau discovers that the ghoulish couple have been killing off the other inhabitants and travelers and plan the same fate for her. She attempts to apprehend them, but they set off a massive explosion during which she escapes. Back in Imihama, Kurokawa exposes Jabi, who has been pretending to be a member of his bunny mask enforcers. Episode 6. Bisco and Milo trudge through a snowy wasteland when they stumble onto Tyrol, nearly frozen to death. Milo saves her life again and the three continue their way aboard Akutagawa. Tyrol repays the favor by helping Milo barter with some Shimobuki traders who speak a different dialect. They arrive at the frozen entrance to Kitsuneoka Station, which Akutagawa breaks open. Milo, Bisco, Tyrol and Akutagawa follow an old subway tunnel, and find an automatic railcar, but it is activated by yen coins which no longer exist. That evening, while flipping through the Field Guide to Life in Kanekidani guidebook written by a mushroom keeper that they acquired from the traders, Milo finds information about the rust-eater mushroom, found on a giant flying pipe snake. Using her mechanical skills, Tyrol manages to hotwire the railcar, so Milo and Bisco part company, leaving Tyrol as friends after finally exchanging names. The railcar runs into a pack of oil slimes, but Milo is able to destroy the parent octopus-like slime with Akutagawa's help. Milo and Bisco emerge from the tunnel and arrive at the edge of a valley where the rust-eater mushrooms once grew. They see the giant flying snake, but have no idea how to bring it down. As Bisco tries to work out a plan, Pawu speeds towards him on her motorcycle, still seeking to arrest him. Episode 7. As Pawu attempts to seize Bisco, the giant flying snake re-emerges from the valley and grabs hers with the finger-like appendages along its side. Milo has Akutagawa jump onto its back and wound it with its claw, forcing the snake to release Pawu, but it grabs Akutagawa's claw with its long tongue. In desperation, Milo severs Akutagawa's claw, but the double-headed snake swallows both him and Bisco, who tries to save him. Bisco manages to kill the snake from the inside with his mushroom, creating arrows. Bisco then tastes one of the Matsutake mushroom attached to the body of the snake and declares that it is not the rust-eater, but Milo discovers that it reacts on contact with Bisco's mushroom keeper blood, enabling him to make a rust-neutralizing serum. Kurokawa arrives overhead in an airborne vehicle to take the giant rust-eater snake's body, and he shoots Bisco with a rust bullet before departing with the snake. Pawu has a change of heart about Bisco, even calling him cute before she leaves for Emihama with some of Milo's anti-rust serum to cure Jabi. However, when she arrives back Shimobuki base, she finds her men gone and Kurokawa holding Jabi. Bisco tries to follow her, but he is too weak from his wounds, so Milo injects him with some serum and prepares to save Pawu and Jabi himself. Episode 8. Kurokawa holds Pawu prisoner at Shimobuki base and broadcasts a video message on an open channel that he will kill her unless Milo delivers both Bisco and the anti-rust serum to him. Milo arrives at Shimobuki and attacks Kurokawa with a knife coated with mushroom poison. However, Kurokawa is prepared and reveals that he was a former mushroom keeper with a strong knowledge of mushrooms and shoots Milo with an arrow coated in puppet shroom to control his movements. He demands that Milo reveal the secret of the rust-eater, but Bisco suddenly arrives and attacks Kurokawa, wounding him. Kurokawa forces Milo to shoot puppet shroom arrows into Bisco to immobilize him and then forces Milo to reveal the secret of the serum. Meanwhile, Jabi has escaped from his cell, freed Pawu and shoots an arrow through Kurokawa's eye. The trio escapes, but are pursued by Kurokawa's men, so Jabi fights a rearguard action. Kurokawa's enforcers pursue Milo and Bisco and shoot them with arrows, but Akutagawa emerges from the snow and saves them. Episode 9. Milo has a dream about his comrades and wakes up to find out that he is blind and rust is eating away at him. Bisco calms him down and injects him with the rust-eating medicine that Pawu gave him earlier and then heads out to tackle Kurokawa. Meanwhile, at the Japanese government forces Miyagi base, Kurokawa tells Jabi that he has ample supply of anti-rust treatments from persecuting mushroom keepers. He is spreading the rust disease to maintain demand, including firing rust-producing spores from an elephant-like Ganesha cannon. He tries to pressure Jabi into recruiting mushroom keepers to help produce more rust-eating medicine, but Jabi refuses. Kurokawa threatens to cut off Jabi's fingers, but one of his bunny mask workers severs the chains instead of Jabi's fingers and stabs Kurokawa in the foot. The worker is revealed as Bisco, who asks Jabi to destroy Kurokawa's Ganesha cannon while he deals with Kurokawa. During the fight with Kurokawa, Bisco is shot in the eye with a rust bullet and loses his fingers and forearm to rust, but he grabs Kurokawa and leaps into the vat of melted rust lava with him. Milo arrives just as Kurokawa dies, but before Bisco is also consumed but the rust lava, he asks Milo to take his life. Milo cries as he shoots Bisco with an arrow and screams, "I love you." Episode 10. Acting on Kurokawa's original instructions, the Ganesha cannon is filled with liquid rust and is prepared for firing, but the combined efforts of Jabi and Pawu manage to topple it so that it explodes, also causing the facility to collapse. They are reunited with Milo, who informs them that Bisco has died but lives in on his heart. Suddenly a part metal and part organic Tetsujin, Tetsu meaning iron and Jin meaning man in Japanese, rises up out of the ruins. The Tetsujin then fires a blast at Weeping Child Ravine in an attempt to destroy it and then showers clouds of rust over the government forces. It begins walking off into the distance, so Milo decides to follow it while Jabi and Pawu prepare to follow on Akutagawa. Meanwhile, the surviving forces return to Shimobuki base, where Tirol overhears them talking about the incident at Miyagi base. The Tetsujin strides into view, and following an attack by the government forces, it covers them in clouds of rust and heads south towards Imihama, repeating the word Akaboshi. Milo catches up with the Tetsujin, which he believes is a transformed Kurakawa, and fires mushroom-producing arrows into its body. Jabi arrives on Akutagawa and fires more arrows, but the monster manages to shed the mushrooms and then sets off a massive explosion. Episode 11. Jabi and Milo are still alive, thanks to Akutagawa, who protected them from the explosion, but Jabi is wounded. Milo leaves Jabi in the care of the local Shimobuki and heads off on Akutagawa towards Imihama in pursuit of the Kurakawa Tetsujin. Meanwhile, the monster approaches Tetsujin town, and the children decide to abandon their home and run for their lives. Just as it begins to destroy the town, Milo arrives and again begins firing arrows into the Kurakawa Tetsujin, which slows it until the Imihama watch arrives and begins an attack, firing rounds from tanks on the ground and missiles from aircraft. Tirol arrives in a vehicle with Pawu and Jabi, and they join Milo, who continues to shoot mushroom-producing arrows, but nothing seems to slow the monster. A huge fan appears in its chest, which begins to spread a rust storm enveloping everything in its path. In desperation, Milo injects himself with Bishamon mushroom poison to enhance his powers, and attacks the Tetsujin himself, managing to land on its body and begin cutting it open. The monster casts Milo aside, but not before Bisco begins to emerge from within its body. Bisco thanks Milo, whose voice he heard while he balanced on the precipice of the next world, and prepares to challenge the Kurakawa Tetsujin. Episode 12. Milo and Bisco are happily reunited, although Bisco has transformed, with a glowing right arm, and his body is exuding spores, causing Milo to surmise that Bisco is half human and half rust eater. Bisco attacks the Kurakawa Tetsujin, but it recovers after each attack, and Tirol deduces that the Tetsujin's pilot resides within the iron mask and that should be the focus of their attack. Pawu volunteers to split the mask, and after Bisco agrees that she can have anything she wants on her return, she suddenly grabs and kisses him. Jabi launches Pawu toward the Tetsujin's head, where she strikes it with her steel pole to split the Tetsujin's mask without detonating it. The mask falls away, revealing Kurakawa embedded within the head, but he continues to attack and momentarily blinds Bisco with concentrated rust. Encouraged by Milo, Bisco fires an arrow, killing Kurakawa, and preventing the Tetsujin's self-destruct. A tidal wave of rust-eater mushrooms bloom and destroy the Tetsujin and all the rust nearby, including the infection inside Pawu. Eventually, the huge quantity of rust-eater mushrooms provide a limitless cure for the Imihama population. Pawu becomes the new governor of Imihama, and declares independence from the Japanese government while decrying its persecution of mushroom keepers. Some time later, a disguised Bisco and Milo leave through the Gunma Imihama border outpost and give the official and his assistant vials of the rust-eater injection as reward for caring for the mushroom left behind. The duo head off into the distance, intending to find a way to undo the rust-eater transformation, as Bisco does not wish to live forever, and because he keeps growing mushrooms on his body. Thank you for staying tuned until the last episode. Be sure to subscribe, and we will see you in the next anime season.